Congratulations to them.
Yeah, long-suffering Bills fans. Well, as calls to defund the police go on, one city is already seeing the effects. Portland is experiencing its highest murder rate in nearly 30 years. And with shootings nearly doubled this year, police officials are asking for the public's help to stop the violence. Joining me now to discuss it, Jason Rantz, host of the Jason Rantz Show on KTTH Radio in Seattle. Crime overall is up, 116% in Portland? It's a pretty dramatic shift over last year.
Yeah, and it's very specific crime, right? We're talking about shootings. We're talking about homicides being up as well. And, it doesn't take a lot of serious brain power to understand exactly why. There is a connection between ending the gun violence reduction team and the gun violence that we've seen in the city of Portland. I don't mean to be dismissive for the sake of being dismissive here, but I mean, it's simple cause and effect. You can extend the same logic to our personal lives. When we slow our internet speeds down because we don't want to pay for it, well, guess what? It takes longer to download stuff off the internet. When you go after the very team of police officers that are going after the problems concerning gun violence, guess what? More gun violence happens. We're talking about gang violence in the city of Portland that's driving these numbers. And the politicians there decided to give in to the mob of people, asking them to defund the police. Over the summer, they got rid of this team, and now they're suffering the consequences of it.
Right.
The chief of police can talk about, asking for the community to step up all he wants. That's not going to do the job that trained police officers were doing effectively before they were disbanded.
The gun violence reduction team included 34 officers. It was comprised of 34 officers. And yes, the commission decided to disband that as kind of a nod to the defund the police movement. Let's take a look at the number of shootings that have taken place in Portland in the last year and the last month. In December of 2019, there were 33 shootings. In 2020, 59, so almost double. Over the full year, 393 in 2019, 850 shootings, more than double in Portland. That ought to tell the police force and the city council something.
Well, it should. And the interesting thing about this, and this is a movement that's not just happening in Portland, it's happening all across the country. You've heard the movement basically say, look, we need to defund the police because we want to put money into various programs that go at the root causes of the violence impacting our communities. And it sounds really good, except it's only the appearance of thoughtfulness. And you just sort of mix in some progressive buzzwords. But at the end of the day, what they've decided to do is shift money into programs that have not been proven to be effective. It would be one thing if you said, look, we're going to continue our funding for our police department while also doubling down on giving money to various community programs to go at the root causes. And then wait a year or two or three and say, look, we're actually cutting down the violence by X percent because of the money that we're putting into these programs. Now's a time where we can cut down on some of the police spending. That would be one thing. That would be a nuanced approach that actually makes sense. But instead, they're doing it the opposite. They are presuming that their approaches are going to work and just taking the money out of the police departments. The reason why that is ridiculous is not just the presumption, but in a lot of the cases, whether we're talking about Portland or anywhere else, we're putting money into programs that already are being funded and not actually working. And so at some point, you do have to step back and realize what it is you're doing, which is just creating a whole bunch of victims out of innocent civilians. Because in Portland, a lot of these people who are getting shot, it's not just bad guys shooting bad guys. There are innocent civilians who are getting caught up in it.
Yeah. And the police chief there is asking people to step up and try to stem the violence in their own way. Listen.
We've come together to mask up, to stay home, to keep others safe. We have come together to do our best to stop the spread of a deadly disease. Violence is also a disease that kills, and our community is suffering the consequences.
Well, I can put on a mask to, stop COVID, but I can't, disarm some guy with a gun.
Yeah, it shouldn't be mask up and put on a bulletproof vest. That's not the way that we need to live in our cities here. And so, look, it's not the job of the community solely to keep each other safe. Yeah. Not when we're talking about gun violence, not when we're talking about gang violence.
Portland, good luck. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, Jason
Thank you
Rantz.
so much.
Okay, Senate Republicans pressure